All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our fitness and pregnancy webinar. This is our webinar where we're learning about strength training throughout pregnancy. And just a quick note that this information is intended for educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as medical advice. Everything we talk about today, you can follow up with your doctor and ask them about the latest research. This webinar is being recorded, so if you ever need to refer back to this, it will be on our YouTube channel. If you're joining us, you are probably expecting, or you and your partner are thinking about starting a family, and you're preparing yourself in advance, which is great. I'm so glad you guys are here. If you have an HPE colleague that is expecting and wants to learn more or ever in the future on this topic, please share this recording link with them as well. So a little bit about myself. My name is Shannon Tressel. I'm a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, nutrition coach, and I manage the fitness center in Houston. So maybe you have seen me on campus in Houston, or you have seen me virtually with our QFit program or other webinars. I became very passionate about this topic when I went through pregnancy with my son Walker and my postpartum stage. A little bit about our agenda today. We're going to be talking about the exercise benefits of working out during pregnancy, guidelines to follow. We're going to really get into your posture. We're going to talk about your pelvic floor, and we're going to get in a little bit into what it looks like during your first, second, and third trimester when you're exercising. Exercise benefits for mom-to-be. When you exercise during pregnancy, you should anticipate, and there have been studies that it shows you will have a reduction of many pregnancy and postpartum induced ailments. More likely, you have an easier childbirth and reduce your chances of having a cesarean. You'll have an elevated mood. There will be less incidence of stress, and then prevention. It will help prevent any pelvic floor dysfunction. And I understand a lot of this information can be a lot at once, new terms maybe you haven't heard before or just new to hearing. And I'm going to try to explain everything in a very applicable way. I had to read about pelvic floor maybe about 10 times and listen to many pelvic floor specialists before I fully understood this. Current guidelines for exercise during pregnancy. In the US, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, OCOG, is the body that provides the official medical guidelines for prenatal exercise. Their latest 2020 guidelines state that those with uncomplicated pregnancies should be encouraged to engage in aerobic and strength conditioning exercise before, during, and after pregnancy at a moderate intensity for at least 20 to 30 minutes a day on most or all days of the week. Here is a list of following activities that are safe during pregnancy. Walking, stationary cycling, aerobic exercises, dancing, resistance exercises such as using weights, resistance bands, stretching exercises, and hydrotherapy. So while all these activities might be safe, they may not be the most effective way to prepare your body for the unique and high stress demands of pregnancy, of childbirth, and early parenthood. So we're going to discuss this further. So what we want to consider, what your body is going through during pregnancy. When training during pregnancy, you want to consider all the possible changes your body is going through. And the two that we're really going to get into are posture and your core. So while the key objective of any prenatal training program should be to minimize the risk of injury, if you reduce loads to limit stress, it's actually going to lead to a decrease in strength. And our muscles need to be stressed in order to adapt and get stronger. So when we take a look at what your body is going through, the physical changes of pregnancy, there are four things that's going to pull you out of a neutral alignment. One is an anterior pelvic tilt. As your belly grows, it often tips the pelvis anteriorly, resulting in an excessive lower back arch. This is one of the number one reasons that low back pain is the most common during pregnancy. So you can see right here, this low back arch. Second, rounded shoulders. A consequence of anterior pelvic tilt is that the curves in the spine will accommodate because of that anterior pelvic tilt, leading to more kyphosis of the thoracic spine. I want you to think anywhere, say right underneath the neck, the base of your neck, to the bottom of your ribs. So that is going to be shifting as well. So you can see it's going to create rounded shoulders. Then we're going to have a shift in center of gravity, and a non-pregnant person's center of gravity is just below the navel. But during pregnancy, the growing belly shifts the center of gravity out and up. And some people may lean backwards to counter the balance, just like you can see in this photo in front of you. When a woman puts her hands behind her back, this places even greater pressure on the low back. The fourth thing is a wider pelvis. Relaxin increases the width of the pelvis to accommodate the growing baby and provide mobility for birth. You're not going to see this more towards this end of the second and third trimester, but a wider pelvis increases your foot width, which means the gait and the movement patterns will likely be altered, which can result in movement compensations. So this is a lot of change that will happen within 9 to 10 months. So how can we prepare for this, and what exercises can we do to help prevent it? This next slide is all about the core canister. There are 3 muscles that shape your core canister: your diaphragm, your transverse abdominis, and the muscles of the pelvic floor. You see the diaphragm up at the top, the pelvic floor lies at the bottom, and the transverse abdominis wraps around the sides. Your diaphragm is designed to be the body's primary respiratory muscle, and breathing is the body's master regulator. It affects nearly every system in the body: hormonal, cognitive, nervous, gastrointestinal, and even musculoskeletal. Optimal use of your diaphragm delivers more oxygen and nutrients to the fetus and efficiently rids the body of toxins, thereby creating a healthier growth environment for the fetus. That's huge. Your transverse abdominis is the largest and innermost abdominal muscle, or what we call the body's inner girdle. It supports and stabilizes the spine. It helps resist that anterior pelvic tilt that we talked about, caused by the growing belly. And it also assists the uterus in pushing the baby out during childbirth. And then your pelvic floor, this consists of 14 different muscles that form a sling at the bottom of the core, and we call it the floor of the core. You're going to hear that a lot more often as well. And these are critical muscles that support the pelvic organs, stabilize the pelvis, control continence, and assist in guiding the baby out during childbirth. We want these muscles to be strong and mobile during pregnancy and childbirth. We don't want weak muscles, and we don't want tight muscles. So you can see that each component of the core canister plays an important role, but the magic happens when they synchronize together to form a dynamic pump. So how do we activate this pumping action? It comes down to the way we breathe. And this specific style of breathing that ensures proper functioning of all the core canister muscles is called 360 breathing. And we refer to it as the #1 most effective core exercise you can do. So if you're currently in a fitness program or have done one in the past, you may have to take a mental turn to understand this and embrace it, because it's not something that is taught in traditional fitness classes or programs unless you're in a pre or postpartum program. If you have participated in yoga or meditation consistently, then you've had some practice, but not as big as what you're gonna have to do this year. So 360 breathing. This is how we prevent tight muscles of the core. Just like we have to exercise to mobilize tight hips, shoulders, chest, we also have to exercise to mobilize the core canister to help with this pumping action. And 360 breathing is something you will continue to hear more about. Maybe you sign up for a labor class or work with a specialist. Imagine as you're blowing up a balloon, this is going to help train your body to work properly, to train that core canister to work properly. Imagine blowing up a balloon. You're going to inhale through your nose and exhale with pursed lips. I actually have a balloon with me right here, and I'm going to do this with you guys right now. So I'm going to stand up real quick just so you guys can see my full core. And when I first started doing this with a balloon, I noticed that I wasn't properly using my core canister, definitely not my diaphragm. Maybe I was using more stomach breathing. We're going to inhale through our nose, exhale, and my belly should expand and come back in. And when I say 360 breathing, I am trying to blow up the balloon using everything I have around my whole core. Imagine even in my back, right? I'm trying to expand everything as much as I can. So I'm going to inhale. All right. I'm going to release that balloon. It took me a bit to properly work my core canister, to use my transverse abdominis and my pelvic floor. And sorry, I'm letting out the balloon. It's going to sound like a fart sound, just so you guys are aware. To use my core properly. All right, so the action that I have for you guys today, the 5-minute action I want you guys to do, is to go online and buy balloons from Amazon. And you want to practice with it 3 times a week. Just blow up that balloon 3 times a week. 3 times one day, 3 times another day, 3 times a third day. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about your trimesters. Okay, your first trimester is weeks 0 to 12. Usually no modifications need to be made unless experiencing morning sickness or maybe lightheadedness. It's much more common during your first trimester than anything else. Your second trimester, there's a significant growth in the uterus in the woman's belly, but you're going to have more energy, and some pregnancy-related pain may start, like round ligament pain. And then in your third trimester, that's when we really start to slow down this, say, the movements, and we have to change your body position often, just to modify, to find what's comfortable for you. Perceived rate of exertion, RPE, is the official ACOG guideline for gauging exercise during pregnancy. RPE involves listening to your body and gauging your exertion by how you feel. The recommendation is to use 1 to 10 RPE scale, where 1 is minimal effort and 10 is maximal effort. In general, a good guideline to stay within is 6 to 8 during pregnancy. But remember, this is based on how you feel, and what you feel like on a 6. What feels like a 6 for you earlier on may be different later on. It may feel more like an 8, and it can change from day to day. So in your first trimester, these are functional movements that should always be incorporated into your program, no matter if you are in pre or postnatal program. A squat, a hinge, a push, a pull, a carry, and a rotate. Now, because we want to prevent that anterior pelvic tilt that we talked about, we really do want to focus on the hinge and the pull. I'm going to demonstrate a few exercises real quick. So these were counter that anterior pelvic tilt, because we're working so much on our back, our glutes, and our hamstrings. So anytime that you do a squat, right? When you do a squat, the movement is coming from your knees, right? This is primarily going to work our quads, a little bit of our glutes. But every time we do a hinge, when you're pushing your hips back to the wall behind you, right? The movement's following your hips. Your hips are doing the movement. You're going to be working your glutes, your hamstrings, and your low back. All right. When you do a push, say a push up or a chest press, you're working your chest. When you do a pull or a row, you're working your back. So we want to focus on exercises that are going to work our back, our glutes, and our hamstrings, and our core as well. Anytime you do a rotation exercise is great. A pull is a bent over row, reverse fly, incline row. And then anything for a hinge, RDL, deadlift, hamstring curls, glute bridges. RPEs, in general, we recommend lower RPEs, 6 to 7, if you are just starting out and working on mastering the fundamentals. Once you progress onto strength building, you can increase that intensity to 7 to 8. If you are accustomed to higher intensity work, you can go up to an 8.5. It is not recommended to go higher than that, and that's just because there's no research validating the safety of working out beyond that level. So second trimester. Once you have built the foundations and you have functional movement down, we want to focus more on strength building. And you may be doing this already in your first trimester if you've been sticking to a plan for a long time. But if you haven't, that's when we really focus on it during that second trimester. We may have to modify body positions as your belly continues to grow. Say we're going to take a wider stance for your squats instead of a slimmer stance, because as your belly is growing, you need more room. When we're focusing on strength, we want to target all your muscle fibers, your endurance muscle fibers, your strength, and hypertrophy. When we're working with endurance, that's anywhere between 12 to 20 reps, about 2 to 3 sets. For strength, it's 1 to 10 reps, 4 to 5 sets, and hypertrophy, about 12 reps, 3 to 4 sets. We also really get into activities of daily living, ADLs is what we call it. So once you master those fundamentals and you layer in functional exercises that prepare you for the physical demands of parenthood, these movements are called parenthood ADLs. Think of movements that you would do as a parent of picking up your child and putting them back down, whether that's picking them up out of the tub, if that's putting them in and out of the crib, if that is having to hinge over to pick up the car seat, a heavy car seat with a baby and a heavy car seat. So the more practice of these patterns ahead of time, the easier it will be to execute them in the postpartum period, which translates to fewer pains and injuries and a faster recovery. Your third trimester. In your third trimester, we really take time to slow down a bit. It's just going to look a little, you may have less energy than you did in your second trimester. And we really are focusing on standing exercises, any exercise that you can do where you're comfortable doing that. There's going to be more labor prep, mental prep, postpartum recovery, working on restoring your connection to your deep core. And this next slide, I have some pictures of some of my favorite equipment to use during pregnancy that I highly recommend, especially when you're in the third trimester, since you have to modify many exercises. Resistance bands and mini bands are a great option to have around, especially if you need to modify exercises. Resistance bands are great for rotational exercises for your core. You can anchor them to really anything, which is something you can totally do at your house. Mini bands are great for working your glutes. And then I love physio balls because they can take a lot of discomfort out from your pubic bone. I was constantly sitting on a physio ball during pregnancy, whether I was at my desk or in an actual workout. So I can sit on the physio ball while performing bicep curls or a shoulder press, or I can lay my back down for chest press and skull crushers. When you're on that physio ball, you also have to keep a good balance, which leads to working your inner core as well, your transverse abdominis, which we've talked about. Another thing, dumbbells are always a must, any type of free weights or kettlebells. TRX is a great option, especially when you're in your third trimester. They can support you during squats. You can angle your body easily to meet your needs for, say, rows or hinges and more. Now, a few warning signs to stop exercise. If you ever are bleeding, have abdominal cramping, shortness of breath, lightheadedness, nausea, or any physical discomfort, talk to your doctor. It's never recommended to push past any kind of pain. We're stretching our muscles, but that's it. So if this ever comes about, you want to stop exercise and talk to your doctor. So final thoughts, understand that there are many pregnancy and postpartum exercise myths that exist culturally, medically, and socially. We want to focus on the latest research to help dispel into any misinformation and communicate with your doctor. I highly recommend working with a fitness professional, whether that is personal training or following a prenatal program or collecting resources to help you on your journey. I just wanted to open up this next slide just to any questions that you guys may have. If I can't answer it now, I will definitely look it up and let you know. Jasmine had actually asked, what's the difference between diaphragm breathing and stomach breathing? Um, Stomach breathing is, well, you know how we talked about in the very beginning, your diaphragm needs to be properly functioning. If you're using your stomach, it's not, it's just not correct. And the best way to make sure you are using your diaphragm correctly is to use that balloon. So that is just what I recommend to do to help train your body. Um, when you're stomach breathing, you're not properly using your core or your lungs properly as well. Um, if you think that's what you're currently doing, Jasmine, and you want to just check, if you want to talk after this, or if you ever need a recommendation for a pelvic floor specialist as well, we can talk about that. So if you want to shoot me an email and we can talk further about that. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to provide a slide for all my resources. If you guys have questions you want to ask me off air, off live, I should say, we're not on the air. Please email me, and I'm happy to talk with you guys. If that's now or ever in the future, please let me know. And I do have a poll to pull up just to ask you guys a couple questions. If you guys can go to the poll, do you guys see the poll that popped up?